Let's get rolling.
All right, sounds good. Well, welcome everyone. Today we're continuing our Zero Trust conversation to go over best practices for operationalizing. At this point, it's clear to most that Zero Trust strategy and architecture is really a must-have for properly securing their environment, but it may not be obvious how to plan out that journey. BTA has a track record of successfully helping customers navigate Zero Trust, and we thought it would be helpful to share some of the best practices we use in our engagements. Here to do that today is our founder and CEO, Ken Fee, and principal architect, Dana Blair.
Hey, Jen, thanks for getting us going, and thanks to everybody that's joining today. And Dana, thanks for being here. Glad we could make the time. You're a busy guy.
Thanks for
So, over the last few of these sessions, we focused a little bit more on the business side of things, of understanding what Zero Trust is, an architecture and an operating model versus just a product. Or you need a number of products to get to that operating model. But Zero Trust, we really, try to execute towards the NIST standards for Zero Trust. And, high trust is a methodology, or a methodology, I guess, is the best way to put it, that we see a lot of our customers starting to go down a path with to achieve Zero Trust, because it's the best defense against ransomware, just advanced persistent threats. And we've been talking about getting executive buy-in, that this is a business issue that is hitting numerous verticals, whether it's finance, healthcare, oil and gas, retail. There are clearly threats on a number of fronts here. So, and now that we've spent some time talking about the business points, we want to talk about kind of some of the technology. How do you get there? And assuming our customers understand these points, and knowing every customer is a little bit different, what are some good or best first steps customers can start on with their Zero Trust journey?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to know where to get started on this, and sometimes it's just hard to get off the dime, because it can be a daunting task, but it can be made simple and operational. One of the key elements is to get the right people involved, and typically that would be the security team, CISO, SecOps for sure, and the apps teams, the people managing the applications environments. This is for securing the servers in the data center. You need to get these teams together. They don't often talk to each other because they have divergent roles in some case, but it's some
Are they typically pretty busy?
Yeah, well, they're busy securing things and making things work. Making money for the app side and making sure things are secure, not being broken into from the secure. So,
do you find that they're more reactionary to security items, or are they proactive?
Well,
you touch a lot of different customers, so
yeah, we do touch on a lot of different environments. Often we'll get pulled in after an incident. I'm in a case currently. They won't actually discuss the incident or give any details, but they do describe what they're interested in, so you can kind of clearly tell some kind of an incident has occurred. And so we've caught them at the sort of on the back end of that to keep it from happening the next time. But then others are like, oh, I heard, in the same vertical, I've heard about my competitors or partners getting attacked, and I don't want that to happen to me. So they're being more proactive in those particular cases. Yeah.
And I would say from a business perspective, we're seeing more people come to us to talk about Zero Trust, and specifically Workload Protection as it relates to Zero Trust, because that seems to be where a lot of the activity is going on at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. The securing the data center servers, the workloads, is a key element, and it's a key attack point. And frankly, there's a lot of wide open behavior, because the application teams, and this gets back to getting the right teams involved. The application teams there's divergent goals. The application teams want everything wide open because they just want their app to work and be able to build it on the fly dynamically without having to think about a lot of the communication. But the security teams obviously need to lock things down to prevent access that they don't want. So you got to get those two groups in the same room. We're pretty good about that. Start off with the security team. They'll pull in, identify the key applications that they're on their horizon for securing, because you can't just start with everything. You got to pick a few things to get started with.
So prioritizing aspect is important.
Absolutely. Prioritizing. If you just come and say we need to do security, it's just too open-ended. You've got to have a prioritized list of things. And it's hard. Some folks aren't even ready for that. So you just keep asking, and others are ready. No, here's what we do. 1, 2, 3. We need to start here, here, and here. And as a part of that engagement, it'll pull in the app teams that are responsible for that. And that's how that conversation gets started.
Do they typically have well-defined enforcement points?
Well, there are usually well-known enforcement points in the firewall and perimeter firewalls and firewalls in the data center. However, how well-defined they are in terms of the policy and the management, often not well understood what's there. There could be things that they know are working, but there's usually a lot of baggage or leftover policies that people don't really have a handle on. So we help people figure that kind of thing out, help validate that, and then get the enforcement hopefully down to the actual workload so that we can securely prevent anything from getting in and out of that workload that's not needed.
So you're seeing the enforcement point move away from kind of the perimeter firewall, in some cases even the data center firewall, and actually move to enforcement at the workload?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the perimeter firewall granularity for what we call Microseg, enforcement or within an application it's just not there to manage that, or even the data center firewall. The number of changes and operations there as applications move from dev to test to prod. You're going to do that Microseg kind of firewalling, locking down. That's going to happen at the workload. Absolutely.
And how are you doing that at scale? How do you most enterprises have policies that are number in the 10,000s of rules. Firewalls. How do you take those tens of thousands of rules and make it something you can push down to a host?
Well, we have to use a tool that can actually build a broad policy for a given application, considering all the shared policies. It'll actually render the rule. If you use the right tool, it'll render the rules down to each workload as needed. We just had a conversation a few days ago. Well, we need to add some policies or add a new cluster to this server set, and if you have the right tool, it only create rules that are necessary for each workload, not just broadcast 10,000 rules everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So really the tool makes a big difference in how you manage the scale.
Yeah.
But you can scale to thousands and even tens of thousands of workloads with the right front end. Absolutely.
Okay. So what are some of the, you're talking about the right front ends, what are some of the key factors, and how should customers go about identifying those technology tools and platforms that'll get them started off, in the right direction, or, give them a strong, hey, I can demonstrate some success quickly?
Yeah. Well, we promote and encourage agent-based. So we start off with agents because that's the most secure method. You can back into other methods with flow-based and enforcement elsewhere, but we're going to stick with agent-based methods, then things that can collect all the flow data, all the flow down to count for every packet. So when we build policies from flows, nothing's missing, everything's present. And then visualizing that is important, either graphically in a list style format, different ways. You want a tool that can visualize that so the different teams can see things the way they want to see them, because the key step there is to get the app team, the security team, sometimes the systems teams to review and agree on the policies that you want to actually enforce to limit the traffic. So the different views of that and the complete view of the traffic and the policies that are necessary for the communication.
So would you say having a single source of truth for policy at the workload level is a requirement?
I don't know how you could do it any other way, because only the workload really knows what's coming and going to that. We'll even see flows that are never opened and just have that conversation. Well, this flow's occurring, but it never actually opens. Well, that's fine. We can drop that flow. You wouldn't see that necessarily at a data center firewall, certainly not a perimeter firewall between the workload. So the workload is the single source of truth of the flows of data, and so that's the best place to actually start to build these policies from.
Okay, great. And I'll just throw it out to the audience. If you do have any questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll get to them once we wrap up after this next question. But once customers started down this path, how do you have any advice on how teams can ensure a continuous success model? Getting to the right outcomes and incrementally enhancing the security profile of their organization.
Well, the success really depends a lot on the team's engagement. So it's not just the technology, it's the team. Right. So the technology is facilitating that, but you've got to get buy-in at the higher levels on the app side and the security side, so that when you get into those discussions, people feel ownership. And this is a key element, is that the application teams start to feel some ownership for the security of their application, and the security teams can start to trust or offload some of that security posture to the application team. Once you get that going, and we've seen it in several cases, then things really smooth out. The reviews are quick. People quickly identify things. Yes, no, allow, don't allow. You can get to enforcement enforce things in a 30-minute window, no change. But you've got to get that ownership and buy-in from those teams as a part of the process.
So defining the objective, getting the teams aligned. We talk about business cases, we talk about team alignment, and then we've got tools, and you need people, process, and teams. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Any one of those you're missing, it's just going to falter. And you can tell when things are faltering when they're taking longer than they should. People don't come to the meeting, or they have to go off and say, I need to look into that, as opposed to getting the right people on the call, have the tool visualize things appropriately, make those decisions. Everybody's in agreement. Once you get that rhythm going, you can segment, an application every week, or even faster, depending on how your security and application teams can scale. Right. But that sort of rhythm is absolutely possible.
It's achievable. You could do an application a week or more.
Yeah, absolutely. Or more. At that point, once you get the rhythm for, an application per week, then it's really up to the business side. Okay, how many apps teams can I involve in this discussion, and how far the security team wants to think outside of that. And it's really up to them how many more they want to accomplish. But once they get that rhythm in place, it's solid.
So once you have a rhythm from beginning to enforcing a zero trust policy with an app, is that a 6 month? Is that a 6 week? Is it 3 weeks? What's the average time on a per app basis once you've aligned the people, process, and the technology?
So the time really depends on the flow collection. So we like to get the monthly seasonality.
Yeah.
So we want the collection for building the policy across a month boundary. So we typically would do it in 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
So if you're start in the middle of the month, as long as you cross that daily, weekly, and monthly boundary, we're going to be good. So it could be as little as 3 weeks.
Okay.
For that, but certainly no more than 5. And it doesn't require a lot of involvement during the waiting period, because we're collecting data, we're building policies. It's really the last 2 weeks where
Okay.
you need commitment from these teams to, okay, here's the policy,
Okay.
and tune that review meeting, and then actually do the segmentation for enforcement.
Great. That's awesome. So Jen, did we get any questions in through the stream?
We did not, I think, because Dana did such a great job of explaining everything you asked.
Oh.
I want to say thanks, Ken and Dana, for all that great info. In closing, I just want to mention that we're conducting a complimentary Zero Trust Strategy Workshop to help you assess where you are, your specific company, where you should be, and how we can help get you there. Please sign up using the link in the chat. It's right there, and you just fill out the form, and I'll get back to you. And thank you again for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.